then I believe it's important for people to know not to judge Matthew Perry, because nobody's here to judge him. We've all been down that road of addiction. But for the knowledge that somebody else may gain from that, knowing that, hey, that combination could take you out. I'm Flindt Andersen, founder of PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need. I've been in recovery since 2001, and there isn't much I don't know about recovery. And my mission is to constantly tell the truth about addiction, to make the realities of addiction, recovery, and drug culture known, and to drive awareness and advocate change that ultimately saves lives.
And I'm Jason LaChance, a certified recovery coach with a passion for speaking with others and sharing their knowledge to help others seek recovery and maintain long-term sobriety. And this is the Don't Hide the Scars podcast, presented by PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need. Mr. Andersen.
Mr. LaChance, what the hell are we doing?
Well, hey, we're above ground, so life is good.
That's right.
Where do we want to? I mean, there's always so much stuff in the news, especially in our field, and it's hard to know where to start. It's overwhelming.
It is. It's definitely overwhelming with everything that's going on. I mean, obviously, it gives us something to talk about.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is, as overwhelming as it is, I don't see a lot of the so-called long-term harm reduction people out there saying much these days.
No, that you're right. That has kind of shifted.
It almost seems like once October is over with and everybody's celebrating Red Ribbon Week, everybody gets out and makes their speeches and all the fun and games of Red Ribbon Week, and then everybody just seems to go away, except for those of us that do this every day.
I got red ribbon hair.
Yes, you do.
For those not watching, my hair is red because I did participate in an event.
Nice.
And I had someone ask me, like, why is your hair red? I said, well, I'm in recovery. I know me. I get really freaking bored, so I got to do goofy stuff like this. I'm what was it? The professional wrestler Terry Funk, middle-aged and crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm officially that now. And I said, because this is going to last a lot longer than a week.
Right. Exactly.
So if people ask me, that's what it's about.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. Nice.
But you're right. It does oddly fall off.
It really seems, and again, I'm not trying to put anybody down here, but it just seems that if there isn't something that's in the news for the day or the week, or if a celebrity hasn't died, like Matthew Perry, which we could tackle a couple questions there if you want. It just seems that they go away.
Yeah.
And the problem is doing more than just existing. It's growing.
Yeah. Well, and I think that when you were talking about that, there's always something in the news for people like us. And the funny thing is there's a lot of people like us that would like it not to be in the news, meaning that, hey, we found a solution. Great. Like, whoa, the world's drastically going to change.
Right. And give me my island to go to.
Right.
Right. Or let me play golf 7 days a week. Absolutely.
Right. But that's not the case, sadly.
Right.
What would we, the Matthew Perry thing is so, it's touchy. We only come from the perspective of what we know. The news has told us our knowledge.
Right.
You have clinical knowledge. Of course, neither of us being a doctor, but, as far as what we know, he's 19 months sober or something?
Something like that.
Quite 2 years.
Right.
And primarily, opioids amongst other things, but he was on Suboxone, and we don't want to speculate that was it. But I think it's important to bring up because there is potentials. There's potential depending on what else was going on with him medically. Yeah. There was things said about he might have COPD. He might have been on benzodiazepines as well.
Right.
Which we've talked about,
which
has gotten into the illicit drug supply period where it's the benzo dope with that. And it's still an opioid, Suboxone. And, maybe not even necessarily talking about him, but there's a reason that if you're on an opioid of some kind, you don't get prescribed a benzodiazepine.
You don't. And I would hope that most physicians know that, which I'm sure they do. And so it's almost like I have to assume that he didn't get that from a doctor, that was bought on the street or given to him by a friend or something, because there's not an opioid addict in recovery alive that would tell you that's a good combination. We know better. We opioid addicts know that we can die from benzodiazepine. Because again, we're not like normal people. We're not going to take, a 2.5 milligram Valium, right? We're not going to take a 0.05 Xanax. We're going to take it to where it hits us like a ton of brick. And so it does it surprise me? It just really doesn't. And again, what was the podcast we were listening to with Dr. Drew?
Yeah, Dr. Drew Pins, the Adam and Dr. Drew show. So Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew.
I think people need to tune into that and listen to that one as they talk about Matthew Perry. There is some really good stuff there, And again, like we were saying, the last thing I want to do is trample on someone when they've passed, and that's not the intent ever. But something's not right here.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's, again, we're not trying to, we're not making a prognosis, a diagnosis.
Correct.
We don't have the licensing or education to do that. I mean, other than you firsthand with life experience. And we're not saying this is necessarily it, but it's a nice warning sign, because maybe, I would believe like you that every opioid addict would know that.
Yeah.
But maybe the families don't.
Right. But again, because nothing's ever 100% sure.
Sure.
But I would venture to say that Perry knew that at least 99%.
You would think.
You would think. Especially because he's been at this for so long. And Dr. Drew made a great point. And this is something that I definitely want to talk about a little bit too. He was telling that an opioid itself is not going to kill you.
Right.
And we're talking about a prescription opioid pill, right? Just like with me with a 25-year addiction. Opioid addicts, short of taking fentanyl or morphine or Dilaudid or, any of the other powerful painkillers like that, we can live a long time.
Right.
We can live a long time.
Yeah, it's much like most of us in recovery have met the heroin addict that was an addict for 30 years.
Absolutely. You can be an alcoholic for a long time, 30 years, 40 years. Now, your life isn't going to be worth a shit. All right. But
I guarantee you.
Right. And you can definitely have health issues from that opioid over the course of some time, especially the bowels and what can happen there. But, if you venture into fentanyl, and this is important, I've heard, I don't know if there's a study out there or not yet, but I get some of this stuff from my law enforcement people as well, even though they're not in the medical side of this. But because of the death count, you've got about a 15-month window once you start using fentanyl.
Yeah, I forget where. And I know we talked to Tom Wolf, and he said about 2 years, and I had read something like that too, that it was a max year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah. Just because it's the nature of the beast. It's so powerful, and it's short acting, and it's something that you have to take. It's not like taking a painkiller every 4 hours, right, or every 6 hours. No, with fentanyl, you've got to dose yourself almost every hour and a half because the high comes and goes so quickly.
Yeah, and thus the withdrawals,
and thus the famous withdrawal symptoms. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and back to what you were talking about with some of the prescription opioids, and I mean, they were literally designed not to affect the body if taken as prescribed.
If taken correctly.
But then, you have the bowel perforation for the excess, and,
which I had, oh, yeah.
Which resulted in surgery.
Which resulted in another surgery. Oh, and by the way, what did they give you afterwards for that surgery? More pain pills, right? Yeah, exactly.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, it's wacky.
Yeah,
it really is.
But I also think with Perry, that and you and I have talked previously about this. There just isn't something right.
Yeah,
with it. There's something. When Mom used to say, "Hey, you know what? That smells kind of funny. Don't eat it." This smells kind of funny.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not casting aspersions or anything else on this, but and like you said, I believe he had 18, 19 months.
So I think it was
somewhere around there. Okay. And even if he were taking Suboxone, in particular, a low dose of Suboxone, he would have looked better. Not to say that he wouldn't have been chubby, right? But his skin would have looked better. His eyes would have looked better. His speech would have been better, because he just looked disheveled. He just didn't look right.
Yeah, something you and I watched. I forget what interview, and it's right around the time of his book release.
Yes.
And I remember you saying something.
Yeah. And again, we may find out from the autopsy. We may not. I'm not sure. But I will say this about the autopsy. For those of us that care, for those of us that are in this for the right reasons, it's not to say, hey, I told you so.
Yeah.
Okay. This is, if in fact this is what happened, then I believe it's important for people to know not to judge Matthew Perry, because nobody's here to judge him. We've all been down that road of addiction. But for the knowledge that somebody else may gain from that, knowing that, hey, that combination could take you out.
Yeah.
And again, it's just for more recovery purposes.
New Perceptions North, the premier drug and alcohol treatment and recovery center in Central California. A full continuum of medically supervised top quality care with programs for detox and patient residential treatment with dual diagnosis, intensive outpatient treatment, sober living support groups, and more. New Perceptions North provides adult men and women with the highest caliber of professional health care, treating each client with compassion and respect in a safe, comfortable environment to begin the process of recovery to proudly create and sustain a life without addiction. Call 559-978-1507 or visit newperceptionsnorth.com.
Well, especially, the underlying conditions, medically wise. Again, it was stated that he probably had, or I didn't see a confirmation, COPD.
Yeah.
You're already in a danger zone with the benzo anyways,
right?
Because, it's like you were educating me being a depressant upon the system that you're worried about just that potentially making the heart stop, which how many families have you helped that have lost someone because of that very thing?
Yeah, because that's the beast of the opioid. And the benzo. It's going to suppress the respiratory system. Yeah. And you take that combination, and again, it's the statement. When everything's right in the world, so to speak, the right combination, the right time, and the body simply says, nope, can't take it anymore. See ya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure people get that out of this, but to reiterate, we're not ill of the dead.
No,
and even in, with him talking about his recovery, helped people, and I'm sure he directly helped people. And, and it's an unfortunate thing that it's not a situation where he can continue to talk about that and maybe empower some people to make that decision. But
correct. But I always wonder, even before I started pain, I waited 8 years. I waited 8 years. And those were some pretty rough years in early recovery. And I've said this, again, I've said this publicly. And again, it's not to put anybody down. But when you write a book, when you do a movie or a TV interview or whatever the case may be, or start a nonprofit, you better be sure you're ready. Not saying that again, that relapse can't happen, because it can to anybody, anytime, anywhere, right? But how many people out there are going, see, I told you.
Yeah.
And again, I don't.
Sadly, I'm sure there is.
I'm sure there is.
No, and I agree with you in that. Talking with a gentleman that eventually we're going to talk with him here on the podcast. I appeared on his podcast and we got talking about the recover out loud, and that concept, and really digging into, well, when it comes to anonymity, the agreement is that, I'm protecting everybody else's. It's my decision, whatever. And I said, well, with that, you better fricking be ready too.
Yeah.
When you do, because then you are making it public that you are available.
Yeah.
And so you better answer the phone and the text. And I said, and I brought up, my buddy that had passed away in July when I went to, wish him a happy birthday, which was, I think his birthday was 6 days after mine in August, to find out he had passed away the month before, because I was in touch with him, and it was through social media, and he moved away and helped him find a group, and, had messaged him my number, which he had never used. And then all of a sudden the direct messages stopped, but he had called me. And for my own sanity, I leave my social media alerts off, because otherwise my phone all day, boop, 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 because I always give anyone I'm working with, helping, whatever, here's my number. And he never used it, and so it weighed on me. And granted, I've had to accept, okay, I gave him every access to me possible. But you have to be ready. You better fricking be ready.
Well, and that's just it. And it's so interesting you bring up that story, because there was a Facebook post today, by a friend of mine that I went to high school with. And he was talking something about, and I think it was more directed towards mental health issues, but, and being a friend with somebody, hey, you know what, pick up the phone. If somebody's calling you, he said, I just want 8 people to like and to repost, that, hey, let's pick up the phone and talk to somebody. Great. So I liked it, but I didn't respond to it. And it reminds me a few years back, probably 6 or 7 years ago, when I was at a men's retreat in the over in Paso Robles, and we were on a ranch, and it was cool. I mean, there were cowboys there, and then there's me that's trying to hail a cab, and so we were sitting around the campfire, late at night, and everybody was kind of talking, and the conversation came up, hey, what can we do as grown men to help society, and blah blah blah. And it went to each guy, and I'm kind of sitting there listening, and hey, one guy said, yeah, you know what, I want to be able to, to help go feed the poor. I want the next guy, I want to be able to do something. And the third guy, he said, I've got a friend of mine who's now a single dad, and he's got a Down syndrome little child. And, I need to be there for him, because he's going, his wife passed, he's going through some rough times. Yeah. And everybody's going, yeah. You need to do that. And of course, then it came to me, and I said, guys, this is all good stuff. And it was, okay. It was all great stuff. I said, but here's the thing. I said, everybody knows what I do. Okay. Not saying I'm better than anybody else, because I'm certainly not. I said, but when that phone rings at 2 a.m., you better not have your phone on silent. And when you tell somebody you're going to be there for them, and that phone rings at 2 a.m., and you look at it and you go, oh, it's just Bob. All right, I'll call him in the morning, and roll over, and your fat ass goes back to sleep. And I go, you blew it. You blew it. If you're going to make the commitment, follow through with it. And especially if you tell somebody you're going to make that commitment, because the minute you don't, and something happens to that person, and even if it doesn't happen to the person, your credibility goes right in the crapper.
Yeah.
Now, maybe some of you don't care, but then don't make the statement.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that still, it weighed on me.
Sure.
For quite a while.
Sure. But again, it's again, and then we had another situation just in the last day where somebody else passed away. and another young person.
Yeah.
And again, I'm getting tired, to be honest with you, of 25-year-olds, dying. And there was another situation from the person I heard from that their child was a friend of this person's. And this other young person used with them when they were in high school together. And this person has been clean and sober for 6 years now.
Mm-hmm. And
when he heard of the friend, he has this rush of guilt and why didn't I die? And when I was talking to the parent, I said, listen, please tell him it's not his fault. Okay. It's not his fault. You did try to help this person. You did put yourself out there. It was his responsibility to call you. Okay. Because you're only going to be able to do so much in this.
Mm-hmm.
But you kept your word. You said you would be there. You said, here's my number. Call me anytime. And if somebody chooses not to call you, you cannot take that burden on yourself.
Yeah.
You simply can't.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's such a tough thing. I mean, I know we talk, I've been doing a lot more varying perspectives on boundaries, and is that term overused? And and it came across an interesting one of being a stand for someone, and it's
being a stand or taking a stand.
Being a stand for someone. So like someone that'll you could stand
okay,
kind of maybe to hold them up or whatever it is in certain situations. It's like, and it was interesting because the book that I was reading, and they're not advertising on the podcast, nor have they agreed to come on it, so I'm not going to give them any credit. But it was brilliant the way it was put out, because the author was talking about, you can still be there, and maybe the term boundaries are overused. I forget how he worded it, but like you can still be a stand for someone and just make it clear that you are not participating in any sort of the BS. You're not going to be a part of this. You're not going to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, instead of saying you have a boundary, it's this is what you are accessible to, this is what you're not.
Right.
So
that's a great way to put it, by the way.
Yeah. Like what level of accessibility do I give to this? And a good example that I came across was Brandon Novak, who was part of the Jackass crew with Bam Margera-Stevo, and recently he was interviewed and asked about that, like, what's your relationship? And he's like, well, Bam said some pretty hurtful things about me recently, and I love him, but he's going to have to sit over there.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to see him again. I'd love it if, his sobriety continues and we can do things to help people.
Right.
But the interactions changed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's interesting how through this thing we have to kind of take a look at that, even with the people that we help. There's a point where it's, yes, we're going to give you accessibility, but to so much.
Yeah. And by the way, I agree with you. I'm really beginning to dislike every time somebody says the word boundary.
Yeah.
It's starting to really stick up my ass.
Yeah, because it's offense.
It is.
Because it's either you're keeping something completely out or yourself completely in.
Yeah. Plus, I think, I don't know if this is the right thing, but it's almost like it just seems like that word is, oh, don't cross my boundary type of thing. Well, okay. So I love the way you put it. I've got some, I don't know, accessibility requirements here. Let's talk about them. But like I think we do in this society, we take one word and we blow it up to hell.
Oh, we bastardize it.
God, we do. Okay, we do. And and then at some point that'll go away too.
Yeah.
But no, I like that, because we have to be able to set again the rules, so to speak.
Yeah.
With the people that we're helping.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, at 559-579-1551, or visit us online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Pain Nonprofit. And please subscribe to the Don't Hide the Scars podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And if you would like to donate to PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, please click the link in the description to make your tax-deductible donation today and help us save more lives gripped by addiction.
And it's like I told somebody, actually it was this morning when I was telling somebody, look, don't ask me the question if you don't want the answer.
Right.
And don't get mad at me if you don't like my answer.
Right.
Because guess what? I didn't come to you. You came to me.
Yeah. This is an area of me that you chose to access.
Absolutely. And like the one guy years ago that came in here and I get done talking to him about him and his son. And he goes, oh, no, that's just completely wrong. I looked at him. I go, then why are you here? So swear to God, right? I looked at him and said, I go, then why are you here? If what to get my opinion?
Right. Okay.
Or do you want some help?
Yeah. Yeah, you just if you wanted someone to just concur with you, and you came to the wrong.
You came to the wrong place, dude. Yeah. Right? Again, it's like a parent meeting. Yeah. I mean, and yes, I will say it. We've had parents not come back because if you don't want to hear the truth, then don't come. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's the responsibility too. That I think we don't. That maybe we don't sit and question on our end of it when someone gives us access to them or information. And I've kind of figured this out the more and more my sobriety and more long-term and doing different kind of work to, not stay stagnant. That people, I think the boundary thing too removes the responsibility of one party or the other.
It does.
It's like, well, that's a boundary. Like, okay, well, but that's your boundary. That's not society's responsibility.
Yeah.
That's whatever with the access to you, that's on you. And I
Jason
think
LaChance, the boundary expert. No, because you're right.
Some people forget that.
Yeah, no, you're right.
It's a two-way street.
It is.
God, what was I watching where I was that show I was telling you about, Irrational. And I forget what kind of, I can't remember if he's an oncologist or whatever the one. It's like psychology, but a little different. And so he solves cases. That's why I thought you would like it, like murder cases and stuff like that
stuff.
And it was, with some of his, him and his ex-wife work together. And so he expected that he would have access all the time. And he goes, she goes, well, I'm not working with you this weekend. And he was like, he was hurt. And then he realized by what she said after that, she's hurt by it too. But she understood that's not an area you're going to access me. Like, my weekend is my weekend. We're divorced for a reason.
Right.
And it's those kind of things. It's like he had to feel what he had to feel on his end. She had to feel what she had to feel and realize that the reality of the situation's in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh, shit. Yeah, you're right. We are divorced. And here I am talking about bringing over our favorite restaurant for takeout and we might watch a movie, but it's work. It's like, no. You were digging for greater access.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, she's really cute. We know what you were thinking. So it's, it's tough.
Yeah, I know. It's, and going back to Perry for a minute, I think there's a lot of people out there that are not going to talk about this. I think there's quite a few down in the Hollywood arena that are just simply not gonna talk about it, or maybe won't accept the fact that there might have been something else, involved here. But again, I hope that it can be used for the benefit of others.
Yeah, me too. Because there's speculation that maybe he had, what is it, myocarditis, which we've been finding more and more post the pandemic and all that. We're not going to dig overly into that. So, it's all these things that
smoking.
Yeah.
But tell me an addict that doesn't smoke.
or use nicotine in some way.
Nicotine in some fashion. I mean, please. Right.
Very few.
Very few.
You know, the one that I know that we just had on, Mike Diamond. That's the one guy that
really?
comes to, oh yeah, no, nothing.
Oh, wow.
Mm-mm.
I mean, seriously, I'm sure there's more than one or two, but I'll tell you what, man, for the most part. And remember, we were talking earlier today about treatment and the fact that some of these kids now, they won't come into treatment if they can't vape.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, really? But because actually I'd tell them, I go smoke cigarettes while you're here.
Right.
We don't care about that. Right. You know, all right. Oh no, I got to have my vape. Well,
right.
You know, well, anyway, we fixed that problem.
Well, in society, because we've talked about before, my favorite recovery movie is still Michael Keaton, starring in Clean and Sober, and at the very end when he's at the Narcotics Anonymous or AA meeting, whatever it is, and his final line is, "Thank you for listening, and thank you for not smoking. The whole room was just covered with smoke when you could," because you know how many of us like that on edge.
Oh gosh, I remember those days. I mean, seriously, yeah. I mean, you would even as a smoker, right? I really tried not to smell like smoke. You know, I did smoke in my car, right? And I'd blow it out the window. I'd lean my head out the window, right? Because I can't stand that smell when it's on you. You came out of an AA meeting, it was like a cloud that just, it was like Linus in Peanuts. Okay. That cloud just followed you as you walked out of there. It was unbelievable. Yeah.
I was going to say my uncle, who's been like 30 something years, but then I just realized, oh no, he still used chewing tobacco. So
there it is. Yeah.
My argument's out.
There it is. Yeah. Totally out. Yeah.
Anything else, Mr. Andersen?
I don't know. This was nice.
Yeah.
You know, this was nice. Yeah. And for those folks out there, we do have more guests coming.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, we do. We took a little break. I had a little injury surgery that had to get fixed up on, and
we had talked about that. Do you want to, I think it's maybe good to share that again, to reiterate, hey, you did come out of it, some pain pills, but you had the support system of the family. You're done with the pills.
Yep. And moving forward.
Yeah.
And moving forward. And again, when you have that, look, there are certain surgeries that you're going to have to, well, you don't have to. All right. But if you want to be in excruciating pain, then don't do it.
Which we have known a couple people.
We have known a couple people, The particular surgery that I had was extremely painful because it's the foot and there's a lot of bones in there and they had to break them and reset them and put pins in and do all this stuff. And so, but I remember we were talking with the young man on our last podcast that it was Josh that was deathly afraid of, he was looking at what if I get in an accident, what if
because he said an injury is what started.
So what started him on him. And I said, you can't be afraid of that, so you have to have that plan. Doctors have to be told. Family needs to know, and they do already, but you have your accountability partner, your best friend, whoever it is that has them, that's responsible for them. My suggestion is, again, depending on the how in depth the surgery is, if you can get away with 10 pills, great, but never go more than 20, unless it's something that's extremely serious, but never, ever, ever go beyond 30.
Yeah.
Okay. And make sure that somebody's giving them to you, and make sure when they're done. And that family member or accountability person will definitely make sure.
Yeah. That double check, no refills.
Right. None of it. Always take somebody into the doctor's office with you, so you can hear what the doctor's plan is, so they can hear what you're talking to the doctor about. All of it.
Yeah.
And geez, surprisingly enough, you'll pull out of it, and the pain will start to go away. And again, it's not to say that the pain's still not there, but it's tolerable. Yeah. Remember, it's a healing pain.
Yeah.
It's not the initial injury pain where you go, holy shit, what did I do? I'm going to die here.
Right.
No, it's a healing pain. Is the healing pain different from the initial pain? Yeah, because it comes and goes. Where that initial pain is just constant and steady. So you got to kind of get that in your mindset, that yes. And then going into this, because I took some time before I had this done.
Right.
And you got to get your mindset right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about. If you found yourself in any old thought patterns,
nope.
Right? Really?
Nope.
Well, I think but I think that comes down to doing the work.
It comes down to doing the work. Comes down to the fact that I've got some pretty serious time under my belt. Yeah. And I remember, like maybe the fourth night or something, I was sitting there and I said, and I've done this so many times, and I just said to myself, I go, you son of a bitch, you're not going to beat me. And I just kind of repeat that little mantra, and you got to sometimes you got to get mad at it.
Right.
And then you look at your family and you go, there's no way I'm going to put them in that position again.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
I'd rather die first. And by the way, you're not going to.
But that's what we tell ourselves. You bet.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, it's all good, but with Josh, it was pretty interesting. I think a lot of young people in recovery worry about that.
Oh yeah.
I don't think most of us that are older and have had some time worry about that as much. Could it happen? Of course.
Sure.
But the younger ones, and that's why I always tell them, man, don't focus on it. Just have your plan ready.
Yeah.
But even that plan could blow to hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like anything else, if that does happen, you're gonna have to get back up, get off your ass, and get it done again. Sorry to be that way, but that's the only way it can be.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's funny. I had someone, because I've done some event hosting recently in this. It had a bar, and I went over and I got my standard "leave me the hell alone" drink.
Yeah,
with my tonic water with the lime, because everybody thinks. And then this one lady that I was working with, I had just met that night, and she goes, "Oh, you don't want to drink?" I'm like, "No, I don't drink." And then she asked, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sorry for press." I'm like, "No, I talk about it, educate." And she goes, "Do you think you'll ever drink again?" And I went, "Well, I guess if doctors start prescribing it for post-surgery recovery, maybe, but I can't think of a single good effing reason to ever." No. So I was like,
sorry.
So I was sitting there thinking about you, oddly. And I kind of paused and looked up, and I was like,
"That's funny."
Yeah, no. Like every time somebody on social media puts that out, they give me one good reason why you're not drinking today, and I'm like, I can't think of a single one too.
Right.
Let alone a reason not to.
Exactly. But don't you find that amazing though sometimes? And I've been in those situations, because I'm not an alcoholic, but I don't drink because I could very easily become one. And somebody, I'll walk up, at a bar or at a function, and give me my Mountain Dew or give me, whatever, lemonade, whatever it is. And they go, "Oh, you don't drink?" I go, "No, I don't drink." "Oh," and I've had that. "Oh, do you?" And I tell them why, and they say, "Well, you'll never drink again." And I want to say, what the fuck don't you understand about this? Right? I mean, seriously, I just explained to you why, and you're coming back. Do you have a brain cell? I mean,
the funny thing about it is when they say never again, they say it like it's good for you, like just period. Like, I'm sorry, the stuff, a glass of wine a day, bullshit.
Right.
Like no amount of alcohol ever is good for you. Not in any way, shape, or form.
None.
There is zero benefit.
Right.
Zero.
Right.
And if you go, well, it loosens me up and I'm able to be out and meet people and whatever, and it's like, well, then you might have another problem, and then come talk to me, because I was that guy.
No kidding. Right.
Right. So it's like, I just don't get it. It's like, your life will be
turn to shit.
Yeah.
I mean, just turn to shit.
Yeah. It's like,
and I don't want to go back there again.
Yeah. No, I forget who I was talking to. I'm like, oh, it was Mike Diamond, when him and I did this Red Ribbon event together, and I was sitting there going, and I was like, God, isn't it nice to be sober? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, because imagine how sad it would be for two middle-aged guys still trying to do the bullshit that we did 15 years ago, along with what came with our drinking.
Yeah.
because we found the bedfellows.
Oh,
we found the hardcore women, the ones that showed up with the booze or the blow or the whatever.
You bet.
And it's just like, it would be really, really, really sad.
It would.
And the reality, it's sad at every point.
At every point. Yeah, it is.
When we're like, oh, this is fun. Is
No,
it really?
It's not really.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Or have you just gotten something that activates all the chemicals in your brain that when you naturally have fun, you get an overdose of them? And
Yeah. I mean, look, some of the antics were fun.
yeah, okay.
Some of
it was
some of the antics. I'm not saying the substance use. I'm saying the antics that went along with it. They were pretty damn funny. Okay, not all of them, but there's stuff that my long-term sober friends that I grew up with. Yeah. We talk about those. Yeah. God, you remember that time with those two girls? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, and we just bust up. Yeah. All right. But when it got to the drinking part or the using part, it's like, oh God, it's like, no.
Yeah. I have buddies that were like, when, Texas Hold'em was really big and we'd have these poker tournaments on once a month and stuff. And we'll talk about the fun that we had there and the camaraderie and the jokes and somehow the drinking just, it's not remembered.
Right.
Thank goodness.
Thank God.
Oh, good Lord. Well, thank you for listening, folks, or watching, of course, available on YouTube at Pain Nonprofit. You can find us actually on all social media platforms at Pain Nonprofit. And hey, if you need our services, want to get involved, it's the end of the year. If you're looking to make those tax-deductible donations, hey, please reach out and help us save lives afflicted by addiction.
You betcha. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Andersen.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, at 559-579-1551, or visit us online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Pain Nonprofit. And please subscribe to the Don't Hide the Scars podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And if you would like to donate to PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, please click the link in the description to make your tax-deductible donation today and help us save more lives gripped by addiction.